For manufacturing enterprises, AI is no longer a slide in the strategy deck. It's reducing downtime, saving energy, and changing how engineers actually work on the ground. But building a production system that can't fail requires a lot more than a simple pilot. Today, we are going to unpack what it really takes to ship Gen AI and applied AI safely in high stakes environments, and why technology has to earn trust before it can scale. Welcome to Applied AI Outcomes, our podcast where we cut through the hype and focus on what actually works when AI meets the real world. I am Ramendra Shukla, CEO and founder of Exponentia.ai, an organization focused on delivering ROI from data and AI initiatives. With over 2 decades of experience in business, data, and AI initiatives, my day job is working closely with enterprise leaders in shaping up AI strategy, governance, overseeing innovative implementations, along with my team of exponents. Today's episode is called Pilot to Production Shipping Gen AI Safely. We are talking about AI in places where uptime, safety, and reliability really matter. Think manufacturing lines, supply chain, and corporate decision making, and what it takes to move from small experiments to capabilities that actually run the business. Joining me is Ashish Srivastava, a dear friend and remarkable business leader who has led data and AI transformations across manufacturing, industrial systems, and data centers. Ashish has significant experience helping organizations build reliable digital and AI capabilities in complex environments. Ashish, welcome to Applied AI Outcomes, and I have been eagerly looking forward to this conversation. Will be wonderful to have a short introduction from your end before we get started.
Thank you, Ramit. Very nice seeing you. Um, First of all, I'm excited to be a part of this podcast and not only sharing what I know, but also learning from you. And you and I go way back, so we'll have a good discussion, and I'm excited about it. So, a little bit of introduction about myself. I'm Chief Digital Officer of Daikin Applied Americas Inc. It's a part of the Daikin Industries Limited, world's largest HVAC company. Daikin Applied primarily deals with commercial HVAC. So think about big data centers, commercial buildings, stadiums, schools, manufacturing facilities. And our business is pretty complicated in the industrial sector. And what I'm more excited about is we are now starting to see the role of technology and digital transformation, especially some of the newer capabilities, including AI, and how it can transform the business digitally for the customers as well as for the company. We have been looking into it for quite some time, tying the what we are supposed to do with the business value that should come along with it. Spending more time in demystifying what AI actually means, and it means so many things for so many people. And we have a point of view. So I'm happy to share that as well. So really excited to be here.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Ashish. I think it's a pretty complex environment. You are operating in, and probably it will definitely be very helpful to go through various aspects of this ecosystem you're running, and of course your leadership experience over last several years will be great to hear from you. So Ashish, let's just directly jump into the topic of today. And to start with, as you mentioned, the possibilities with AI. Let's look at what is looking possible. We have seen AI implementations, traditional AI being there for a fairly long time. Gen AI has added to the entire ecosystem a new set of possibilities, and together we are looking at a digital ecosystem which can really rewire all the aspects of manufacturing ecosystem which we have, right? So whether it is we are talking about the product design, process design, where we are looking at using various options coming out of generative AI, doing the trial and error in the virtual environment more than in the physical environment, or we are looking at the shop floor, the factory environment, where we look at various industrial automation ecosystems, generative AI sitting on top of IoT, and plethora of automation options which are being, I would say, experimented with, and maybe some of them would have gone into production as well. We have supply chains, the entire external ecosystem, better And in fact, what we are talking about today is more autonomous systems which can not only do the forecasting but also plan and optimize the inventory, the routes, the entire supply chain planning exercise. Then we are also looking at the HSE, the entire safety environment, compliance environment, and of course, last but not the least, the entire decision making across the enterprise. Whether you're talking about usage of unstructured data, structured data, putting together knowledge management system, again autonomous agentic systems which are making decisions on the fly, with human in the loop, and probably in future having more autonomy as we move along. Now with so many possibilities into play, and of course from where you sit, right, how do you see this emerging and evolving, right? What are the areas where you feel there can be a bigger impact, and in the near term, how do you see this evolving?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you frame it very nicely, because if you think about industry, almost every industry has an outside looking in perspective, which is really from a perspective of how you make products and how you ship them, how you deliver customer experience, how you deliver customer service, and so on, right? But if you think about industrial AI, especially from a perspective of a factory, um, typically in a factory, you have 4 or 5 different stages. You start off with a planning stage. You arrange and manage your material. You go into production. You complete a production, and then on the other side, you distribute, and then you serve the aftermarket customer service. And then underneath of that, there's a whole quality layer that goes on. So there's a fundamental way of thinking about AI in that setting. As long as you have human beings or machines making decisions, such as planning activity, in planning, you really need a lot of good decision making, or you're performing activities where the data has to give you good insights and decisions, uh, those are really good use cases for AI. Going into the factory, when you are into the manufacturing activity, this is where the reliability, the stability, and reduction of process variability becomes important. So personally, I struggle with thinking about AI too much on the factory floor itself, with the exception of robotics or autonomous, factory machines and so on. But I'm thinking more in terms of Gen AI or the agentic. Um, in that case, I think that wherever you need more variability, you have a better chance of not only identifying those use cases, but also figuring out how you can deploy it, how you can get some value out of it. So I'll give you one example. So remember, back in the days, planning used to be an exercise on Excel spreadsheets, and a few analysts would sit down, crunch numbers, and come up with a forecast, right?
Yeah.
Then came the time when it was a lot more about machine learning, statistical analysis, and so on. That space is a really good candidate when you want to deploy AI, as well as you want to automate using AI. Similarly, on the other side of factory, when you are doing tons of stuff, especially around manufacturing operations that require things like um, quality, or trending of the machine calibration, or how to make sure that you can have reduced yield waste, because you are looking at the data and allowing the data to give you a lot more insights. Those are good candidates. But then there are other areas, such as aftermarket, where AI becomes a lot more useful, because you can automate things, you can do things faster, but you're not coming in the way where if you make a mistake, then the downtime is too much. So, at least in the current sort of environment, I think that, especially in the industrial sector, and especially when we talk about manufacturing, um, I am more motivated to think about the upstream activity around planning, or downstream activities around logistics, supply chain, and of course, quality control. Um, but I'm still not there yet when it comes down to starting to think about agentic as it relates to the factory floor itself.
Oh, that's very interesting, and very insightful as well. So reliability is one key factor, right? Which is part of the decision making, as to where do we apply AI and to what extent we can use it reliably. you know in so let's also imagine a scenario that, if agentic AI has to become a reality, Ashish,
Mhm.
what could be those one or two top use cases you would want to put that into action?
So, one way to think about that is, like I mentioned earlier, especially around the planning activities and quality activities. So, imagine if you have a complicated manufacturing activity going on, and let's say you don't have really reliable quality processes, or you do and it's hard to follow, or there are challenges, right? In that
Mm-hmm.
space, I can see agentic AI playing a bigger role, because if you think about what agentic AI actually does in very simple words, you are really trying to have a much more sophisticated automation for something that otherwise has to be done by human beings. Uh,
Yep,
it gets
absolutely.
slightly harder when you don't have real procedures, or there is a variability in the system. Um, there was a time when we used to do this using robotic automation or robotic process automation, and now with agentic, you can do it in a much more sophisticated way. So, like on a factory floor, particularly, I can think of things like, quality analyst type of persona, or supply chain planning personas, or even things like people who are doing exception management, exception handling, right? Those kind of use cases, they certainly look pretty attractive. I'll tell you this: um, so far, it is not a the track record on this has not been that great. So yes, we are working through it. We are looking into opportunities on where you can do it, and we are pretty much in the elementary stages. Because before you can actually delve into agentic or any kind of AI use case, there's a lot of groundwork that has to happen inside the company. For example, we think about AI not in terms of can I deploy a use case. We think about AI as what should be that enterprise AI framework that we should not only
Yep.
conceptualize, but also operationalize and over time mature it. And then what are some of the key, not just the technology elements, but also the process elements, the talent element that needs to come in? What should be those engagement models that we need to deploy so that we can get some real value out of it? So, one thing that we are doing kind of differently is not simply looking at a use case, but also looking at what is that bedrock that we need to invest in so that those use cases can become a reality.
Absolutely, Ashish. I think that's where the direction I was getting into. That, when we are thinking about AI, of course we want AI everywhere, but then AI has to work on the data. AI has its own, risks with respect to models, with respect to governance, with respect to the overall ecosystem, and then of course putting AI in production, with the current ecosystem, managing that entire change is a ball game in itself, where organization needs to work really hard. And probably, we have all seen a number of statistics around projects not getting successful.
Mm.
um, you know 1 in 5, one in 10 projects, 1 in 20 projects in fact getting successful. Those are the kind of statistics we are looking at. It's hard to put this in production, and that's where, it will be great if you can expand a bit on this, the elements you just spoke about, in terms of what what will it take for you or an enterprise, of the size you are running, to really implement AI successfully at the enterprise level, go beyond the use cases and look at creating the right foundation for AI to take up, various activities within the organization.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and we think about that quite a lot. Um, I'll just use an example. Sometimes I think about what is happening in the AI world the same way what happened long time ago when internet became a reality. It started off with sometimes entertainment value or a use case. You wanted to watch movies or you wanted to download, music or whatever have you. But it was a utility which you wanted to use when you felt like it, it was not a critical infrastructure the way internet has become today. So some of the same fundamentals can be borrowed when we think about how to scale AI. So, example, without a really solid foundation in data, it's just not going to work. So, how do we make sure that we have a strong foundation in the preparation of data, making sure we manage it well, govern it well, unlock it from the systems that are producing it, and make it available so that our AI, use cases can benefit from it. That's one, right? So that's just a data part of it. Then about the AI governance itself. So how are the policies being defined and deployed in the company? What is the security policy? What is the security posture when it comes down to AI? It is a little bit of a risky game because not only you have a risk of consuming bad information, you also have a risk of leaking out trade secret, your intellectual property, and so on. So your security posture becomes a very important element so that you can delve into AI use cases responsibly and safely and securely. Third is looking at a enterprise backbone on AI. So, for example, there are maybe more than thousands of LLMs out there, but the top suspects, whether it's OpenAI, Microsoft Copilot, and so on, they are the main ones. And we have to think about what is that AI backbone that you should be deploying that has the enterprise grade instance and implementation, and you can manage and govern that, but also architect that in such a way that you're not locking out other models that you need access to for your scenarios and your use cases. So I cannot stress enough the role of data security, the role of enterprise overall governance when it comes down to AI, including policy management. And then last but not the least is if you think about almost every platform or application that we can think of has AI embedded in it. But we don't necessarily know how mature they are. So you need a really strong talent that can not only evaluate whether it's your platform, LLM, or SaaS based AI, or just a standalone AI tooling that you want to deploy. How would you bring it? How do you configure it? And how would you manage it? So that way, you are now creating an entire culture in the company where AI is now a companion. It's not somebody, some people use it and some people don't. It is just a part of how you do business. So investing in each and every element of this framework is very important. And frankly, right now, there are not many good references to draw upon from. So some of it we are going to learn by doing, by taking feedback, by borrowing some of the ideas from other places. But that's how I see it. I personally think that over a period of next few years, it would not be a matter of what are you guys doing in AI or are you doing AI or not. It is going to be expected that you have a strong AI presence and AI backbone in the company, and particularly when it relates to what you can do in the on the factory floor in the manufacturing operations. You can imagine the the possibilities, right? Not just on the manufacturing but also in the R&D, also in the other aspects of the overall value chain.
Excellent. Ashish, I think all the relevant points and very insightful in terms of how you have put it. On the and especially resonating with. In fact, I resonate with all the points. Having my own conversations with various leaders. That these are some of the problem areas or the points on which almost everyone is thinking. And data foundation, as we are aware, it has always been the requirement for analytics to start with, and then traditional AI ecosystems. We've seen data infrastructure being created separately
Mhm.
for models versus BI. There are data sets which are being created in silos, and probably that is because of the governance and how you own that particular part of data. But it all has to converge to make it meaningful for enterprise AI systems. And within that, if you were to look at, what additionally do we need from a data platform perspective, are
Mhm.
there, any specific areas you would want to deep dive into, and probably look at how do we do data differently as compared to what we have been doing in a more, analytics first era as compared to an AI first era?
Yeah, I personally think that a time will come when data and analytics and AI will become interchangeable with each other because these two practices kind of merge together. At the end of the day, AI is all about data.
Absolutely.
And data analytics has realized one thing which I really like, which is unless and until you have a high quality data control, it's really hard to derive value out of data, right? Um, when it comes down to AI, there are two elements that, in my opinion, are adding some interesting, angle to it. In a traditional data analytics environment, you unlock and unblock data, and then you figure out how to use it to produce value. With AI also produces content. It actually produces data. So the data that it produces also requires quality control and governance and everything. Otherwise, over a period of time, it's going to create this feedback loop where good data is now producing quote unquote bad data, and the bad data in a circular loop is bringing down your overall data quality. So I don't necessarily have a good answer to that question just yet, but I'm very curious about what is happening in controlling the overall data that is also being generated through AI use cases and how it is being enriched back into the ecosystem. The other aspect is we talk about this a little lightly. People call it hallucination or model drifting and so on. And in reality, model drifting is nothing more than the inputs going sideways that is causing the models to behave differently. So, is it model drifting? I don't think so. I think it's really the data drifting. So, when the data is drifting differently, it is making the model work differently. So, the data governance needs to go to a next level in the AI world. The other similar aspect is around risk management. And a lot of that risk, not just the risk that you need to manage in terms of data risk, security risk, and so on, but also the risk that actually gets created when you have AI in action. So now we are also talking about a situation where you may have an AI use case like an agentic AI, and not only you have to manage the inputs in terms of risk mitigation and risk management, but also how would you manage a risk, let's say, in case you have a wrong value or you have a wrong output. What is that risk scoring going to look like in that case? So these days we are actually spending good amount of time thinking about what would be the AI risk management fundamentals. A lot of this is currently being derived from the what I would call as the ITIL framework, but also um, I think it's going to have its own way of thinking about AI risk management. So between data quality or data governance, which needs to add some more layers to it, and then the risk management uh, controls that will add another layer. I think we really need to pay attention to that. I really like the idea of being very pragmatic or practical about the tools and technologies and what they do for you. So the focus on the risk management, in my mind, is important. So healthy appreciation for innovation and doing things, moving fast, and failing and learning from it, but at the same time equally important to pay attention to what we are learning and are we going to use that to build out the right solution that you can you know uh, kind of deploy and improve the quality of your own AI adoption in the company.
All right, that's yeah. I think that's great. The way I could put this in few blocks. The way I understood is that one part is that what goes into AI, right?
Mhm.
So putting together the entire semantic layer, to make the data understandable to AI, and also curate the data which is going into the AI ecosystem for the processing or decision making. And then the third part is what is the output which is happening, right? So evaluating that output, making sure that we are putting the guardrails, we are putting the checks balances to understand what is happening in a very robust manner is what probably is going to help us. So control what's going in, govern it well, make it understandable, um, keep the platform kind of open, have the choice of models, have the choice of various features you want to have in the platform, and then manage the quality of the output. Those are the three key things. Is that the right way you think to put it?
No, I think that's very well said. One more thought came to my mind when I was, listening to your summary is, especially in the US, the regulatory framework is not that certain. And sooner than later, those frameworks are going to get not only much more developed, but we also have responsibility to figure out how to do responsible AI so that um, the the regulations around it, the best practices, the right way of not just conceptualizing AI use cases but deploying them can play a role in how the regulatory framework could look like. Um, I especially, I mean, we are industrial, so we pay attention to things like safety, quality, high quality data, uh, manufacturing excellence. And all of these things are tied to expectations, not only from the customers, but also from compliance perspective. So
Right.
uh, very, very important to think about what are some of the key guiding principles that we want to keep an eye on as we think about AI in the industrial sector. Um, I still have not figured out the part which is around AI, how it directly ties to improving the safety posture, the quality posture, especially as it relates to the machinery and so on, right? But those are also equally important, in my opinion, the regulatory side.
Great. So Ashish, this particular episode we have pilots to production as the name, and whenever I talk to the leaders, I have realized that they are really have huge set of requests coming in for various things which business wants to attempt, right? As in, and of course, because of the nature of technology penetration, and the kind of buzz around it, everyone wants to experiment, and then of course to scale as well. So I'm sure you are getting these requests also. How do
Mhm.
with all the constraints, the risks and the data, and having all those things in place, how are you evaluating these? What are you if Ashish has to say, go ahead with this one, right? What what will it take, right?
Yeah.
And while you're managing all the organizational requirements, at the same time you're allowing for the businesses to innovate, keeping the risks in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, that kind of goes into what I would call as the maturity framework for a company. So today we have more AI use cases than we can handle because people are coming up with the ideas. We have asked for those ideas as well. So we have a good inventory of use cases we could go after. So the way we think about even prioritizing AI use cases is looking at the value it brings to the company. And there are two aspects to it. One is you have to develop an engagement model. How do you create an inventory of use cases? How do you review them? How do you prioritize them? How do you attach them to a business case? What will it take to pilot them and think about how to scale them? That's just a part of what I would call as a normal product lifecycle management, so to speak, right? You got to conceptualize something and you got to get it done. But then, as we were discussing earlier about the backbone, do you have the right data framework? Do you have the security framework? um, do you have a right team, right? So, for example, what we have also done is we have created what we call as AI Council. The council is a framework that includes stakeholders from security, from legal, compliance, data, business partnership, and they collectively think about, do we have a good use case in our hand? And then there's a center of excellence. Center of excellence looks at, it's not just about piloting, right? Sometimes I say that it's easy to make a sandwich, very hard to make a restaurant. um, so not just looking at, can I just go ahead and execute on this use case, what will it take to scale? So this is where we think about Do we have the right architecture? Have we figured out the right data strategy behind it? And should we decide to scale this, what do we need in terms of talent, in terms of people, so that we can go from what you just mentioned, from pilot to scale. Not everything is scalable, and not every pilot can actually go to scale, right? So choosing those use cases that actually have scalability is equally important. And then the backbone that you invest in early on, that becomes super important. So we invested in security posture. We brought in a lot of digital capabilities around data management, master data management, observability, building out the enterprise framework around security and so on, that you need right from the get go. Otherwise, the risk is that you will have the standalone AI use cases um, that may be okay in a limited way, but they don't necessarily scale.
Right. And Ashish, are there during this journey, right, pilot to production, are there specific gates, or probably the stages, if things are not working, you decide that okay, let's just turn around. We are not
Oh
going
yeah,
to scale this up. Yeah. So
yeah,
what could be those few specific gates you want to personally keep a tab on?
yeah. So what we have done in our own way of doing this, right, is we follow a very simple methodology. You first ideate and prioritize. This is a use case side of it where you're looking at how to just get your right set of use cases to work on. Then of course this is where the gating is, that should it go any further, or should we just stop here because we don't necessarily see a value out there. And the next step is around design, build, and trust. Sorry, and design, build, and test. This is where we look at, okay, let's pilot it, let's do a proof of concept and see if we can see a value here. But then in the gating of productionizing, as we or to put that in production to scale, um, we have same thing. Our council and our team, they look at certain criterias. Can this scale? When you put that in production, what is the performance? And when you kind of put that to 10x and so on, is it still going to work or not, right? So there's just a standard governance that you would like to perform on any kind of product management or product lifecycle. You can do that, and you should do that. But anytime you see that this is not going that well, yeah, you can always scale it, and you can pick up another use case and continue running with it.
All right, excellent. Yeah, Ashish, while discussing these foundational elements, one of the things which you touched upon is the role of, having the right skills, right people in the organization, holding the responsibility of various aspects of AI implementation. Within that realm, if you look at the kind of excitement which is there, and a lot of people wanting to experiment with AI, and in our personal capacity, almost everyone is using AI in one form or the other. um, you know uh, but the entire usage has to be channeled in a particular way, and probably it may be worthwhile to think about having literacy in a more organized manner. Is that something which you are promoting within the organization? What are the plans around it, especially when you look at the wide variety of people you deal with, right, from
Mhm.
executives to people in the front lines? How are the plans around this AI literacy in the organization?
That's a good question. I would say that there's a broader point here. And the broader point is that when we think about AI COE, it sounds like it's the responsibility of chief digital officer or the CIO and down around what the COE should be and how you establish it, right? So yes, you can have stakeholders like legal, compliance, business stakeholder, and so on. But I would say that if you want to make AI an enterprise-wide phenomena, then it's also a shared responsibility of the executives. So let's touch upon AI literacy. So you cannot do AI literacy by simply allowing people to maybe take a course here and there, right? You really have to think about the learning and development culture in the company and work with HR, uh, curate things like what are the learning tools and resources available? How do you bake them into people's career development plans? How do you make them available in your company's LMS tools, right? Also, work with the right set of academic or literary resources to curate the right kind of information for the right level. If you're an AI engineer, you need different type of learning resources. If you're an executive, maybe you need different. If you're an end user, it's different. So I would say that there's an opportunity for the chief HR officers and the learning departments to think about adding the entire academia of AI in the company culture and make it a part, right? So that kind of creates a culture of learning, the culture of growing, and it now creates an excitement. So that's on the learning side. I will probably expand this question even to the other side, right? So if you think about the shared responsibilities of the executives, um,
Mm-hmm.
CFOs think about value for money. Therefore, there should be a lot of focus on developing sophisticated financial modeling around AI investments, how AI is driving the value in the company, how do you quantify it, how do you even hypothesize it so that you can go and pursue it. Or if you think about the commercial organization, commercial organizations, they truly wish that technology and tooling provides them things like productivity, better employee experience, user experience, faster time to market. So they can think about adding, let's say, advocates or AI champions in the organization who are figuring out some of the use cases and bringing it back into the council that can be worked upon, because now we are looking at the use case which is much closer to the customer pain points than not, right? Similarly, if you
Right.
look at even legal, chief legal officer, these days, a lot of legal work actually gets done using AI, especially on discovery. It's a fantastic use case. So, by allowing even the senior executives to think about AI in their space, facilitating the learning culture at all levels, and kind of initializing a culture of adding um, not just the use cases but the literacy, the financial value proposition, execution, it can actually be quite nice. So, from the AI strategy perspective, responsible AI, its adoption, nurturing the talent, investing in tech and infrastructure, all of these things are important. Therefore, all the senior executives have a role to play. So one of my key messages would be that if you are thinking about scaling AI from pilot to scale in an enterprise, then the senior executives should take this seriously and proactively, and they should dabble into it. They should promote it.
Excellent. No, I think that's a very important point around the role of overall leadership. Executive leadership in the organization, not only the tech organization, which is significantly important as we try to promote AI. Ashish, one related question, you had earlier touched upon AI Council and and this role of leadership now. How do you see AI Council as well as leadership team working together?
Mhm.
In shaping this ecosystem in the organization, is it like AI Council is the final decision making body and leadership is part of it? How are you organized on that front?
So, I mean, different companies or different teams or different organizations can do this differently. But the
Mm-hmm.
idea is that there should be a governing body. There should be a council is a governing body at the end of the day, right? It's a combination of different stakeholders who are governing it. You could decide that you want to deploy decision rights on the council, or you could federate
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about one scenario where you want to assign decision rights on the council. In that case, you are kind of also creating a system where people are requesting, reviewing, um, authorizing, and deciding on how your AI pipeline should work. Depending on company culture, that can work, right? The other model could be that the AI council is like an advisory board,
Mm-hmm.
and it is producing advisory information, and the decision rights are actually being given back to the respective functions that may have its own AI champion, its own AI excellence track, so to speak, right? Personally, what I like is the council and the advisory being almost like a think tank and creating a lot of autonomy, agility, as well as flexibility in the organization that can have its own, let's call them AI champions or AI agents, who are all sharing similar kind of information and assets and you know other sorts of um, intellectual properties and aligning together. But they also have sufficient amount of latitude to go after their use cases and their scenarios in a reasonably independent way. So the council and the
Got it.
COE can get the backbone straightened out, right? Give the
Yeah.
governance, give the risk protection and the compliance framework and everything, and different function that can actually lead up to their own chain of commands can now drive the AI agenda for their function.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably the most popular way, I have also seen being implemented. And thanks for that, Ashish. Ashish, one quick question on the use cases. We had touched upon, few use cases and the overall framework, but if there is, anything specific, attractive use cases you would want to come to life in industrial manufacturing, what would be those top 2 3 use cases you would want to implement?
Look, I mean, a couple of things that excite me. One is how to leverage the AI almost as a companion technologist or a companion engineer.
Hmm.
Um, I am particularly
which is
careful
which
about,
is more like co-pilots of the world, for every individual in the organization.
yeah, either a co-pilot or you could even have like a bot. You could even have a what I would call as a maybe like a junior engineer persona or a junior technologist persona, right?
Right. Right.
Um, that can truly help in accelerating your software development, application development. It already happens. We all use vibe coding. We use different types of coding tools that can drive a lot of productivity. Uh, but you can imagine some of the very complicated things that we do in industrial. If we have the capability that allows us to um, very quickly catch up to the nuances and complexity of the technology that we dabble um, in that case, a companion AI, as I think about it, is very attractive to me. Um, Certainly, this is an area we are also exploring. I think that a time will come when for every engineer, there's at least two or three or even more AI engineers attached to it. Um, so I think that's a very important use case. The other one, which I kind of like quite a lot, especially in terms of data, is we have a lot of products that have lost their provenance because they are old, and over time we don't necessarily have the data lineage that it could be, right? So I think about so think about let's say you want to identify a part or you want to identify a component, and you don't necessarily have all the attributes of that particular component because the data over a period of time is either not available or it was never created in the first place. So using AI, you could enrich those attributes and rebuild a, a new attribute set that may not necessarily
Mhm.
be same as the original one, but it is pretty rich that it can actually give you almost like a face recognition, right? Like you can get almost the identification of face recognition of a component, and you can figure out where they are at. You can use that as a way to eliminate your master data proliferation, your bill of material proliferation, um, figure out how to fix an old drawing, let's say even old drawing that is now contaminated. Those are the
Mhm.
use cases that interest me quite a lot. I don't know how quickly we will make them into a reality, but to me, when I think about the industrial AI use cases, I think that these are the real problems to solve. They are tough ones, but if AI cannot solve it, well, who else will?
No, I'm sure that AI will be able to solve it, and we're moving in that direction. But it's interesting. Apart from industrial use cases, we had also touched upon few use cases around the knowledge management side of things, Ashish,
Mhm.
because that's what I see is that there's a lot of success which is being seen on the search or chat or putting together knowledge management ecosystem.
Uh-huh.
Is that something which is top of your mind, and where you would want to put your money on? Yeah.
Yeah, that use case is very attractive to me, because if you think about so many companies, they rely upon subject matter expertise of folks who have been there for quite some time. Sometimes, when those people leave the company or they retire, a lot of knowledge is lost. There's a lot of legacy expertise is lost. Even the documents are in different pockets. They may not be in the right location. Um, I don't know of a single instance, at least in my career, where I could say that the knowledge was very well managed and you could access everything, right? Um, I think that particularly with AI, we can build things like a business analyst persona, right, or a tech expert persona who can answer the question for a particular area that you would like to know. Can you imagine how amazing it would be to very quickly learn from a know-it-all AI about a particular subject that has taken all the information in the company and uh, ingested it and can quickly make it available to you, right? So whether
Yeah.
it's let's say somebody wants to learn about the internal business processes or want to figure out how a particular business process works, that's quite attractive. And frankly, that's also very much in the reach. This is an area where we spend good amount of time figuring it out, and I would argue everybody should do it, because the knowledge management problem, I think, finally can be solved with AI in the companies.
So Ashish, from a cost or ROI perspective, right? Where does that fit into your gates? Is it like before pilot, or post pilot is successfully done? You look at what went into the pilot, what are the costs, and whether it really makes sense to scale this out.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So you have to be careful about not attaching too much of business case upfront, because otherwise the innovation will suffer. So especially in the beginning, when you're looking at your use cases, you need to leave some room for innovating. And even if you fail, it's actually a good thing because you learn a lot from that. But once you think that you have a candidate in your hand that you can scale, it's always a very good idea to do a good business case analysis to see what would be the cost of doing AI use case and what is the potential business value that can come out of it. That business value could be, unlocking revenue, unlocking productivity, improving quality, improving decision making. Could be subjective, could be objective. But it's always a good idea to hypothesize a few business case, particularly business benefits. And as you are piloting and scaling, you keep an eye on it, right? Um, One of the biggest worries we have, and you earlier pointed out, that a lot of these use cases are not really producing value just yet. And frankly, businesses have been patient with it so far because they are allowing for that innovation. But just like any other technology implementation, keeping an eye on the ROI is important. Right now, if you think about agentic AI, most of the use cases are predominantly driven by productivity. So looking at how can you drive productivity, either it's cost saving, labor saving, um, hard saving, or even the cost avoidance, those those levers, when identified ahead of time, they truly help not only in getting the buy-in from the stakeholders, but you can also start thinking about outside of just a technology, solution, what else needs to get done to really extract value out of your AI use cases.
Right, right. And is the pace of change a driver somewhere, in your entire decision making? So because as what we are seeing is that the changes are too fast. The buzz is
Mhm.
Really great. We were talking about Gen AI just 2.5 years back, and if you look at how things have spanned over the period of time in terms of capabilities, it has improved a lot.
Mhm.
So is that something which factors into your thought process?
See, I mean, the there is certainly a lot of excitement about AI, which means we get more pressure to do things in this space than less, right? This is not, I mean, it's a good thing in a way. This is not an area where we are being asked not to do anything. Everybody wants AI. So that's okay. Um, the main thing that we are looking at is how to make sense out of it, how to not get drowned out by the noise of it or by the exuberance of it. Because I mean, when you buy Microsoft Copilot licenses or OpenAI licenses, that costs real money for the company. So you will certainly increase the cost of your technology expenditure in the company. And then the fundamental question would be that are you really getting value out of it, or it's just sitting there, right? Um,
Right.
Otherwise, it becomes yet another technology toy sitting in the backyard of your tech stack. So for us, equally important is to keep an eye on how are you spending money on different AI solutions, and as you look at the use cases, are you able to justify the value that will come out of it? And also, when we spoke earlier about the enterprise framework, this is where the pace of change has to be managed, because it's not that you just bought, let's say, OpenAI subscription and that's your AI. Things are changing very, very fast. So you also have to deploy your solutions that will be able to access newer models without changing too much in your architecture or too much in your design solutions. So good thing is that between the work that the team has to do and the strategic partners that you can work with and the uh, LLM libraries that are being available, it is in many ways very similar to best of breed integration reference architecture that you can deploy in a company, so
Mhm.
that you are able to take advantage of as newer things come up without changing too many things.
Right. Wonderful. Ashish, one question, and I think this is a question with every technology which comes up. How do you see this build versus buy equation with respect to AI solutions or AI products, right?
Yeah,
Um, where how will you decide? There's a lot of things which can be done, without really coding. That's how things are coming up. Domain knowledge is extremely critical. Data which is owned by the enterprise is extremely critical. How do you see this spanning out?
yeah. I think that especially we have to first decide who are we in this whole AI game, right? So as businesses, um, we are industrial business, so we are not going to be able to invest that kind of firepower in building our own world-class LLMs or the models. So certainly it's going to be about buy, not so much about build. That being said, there has to be some build activity going on as well, because you may have unique needs and so on. But largely, I see this as not so much as building AI ourselves. There are a lot of impressive players out there that we all know of. It's about how to utilize and extract value out of it. So, building our solutions on top of the AI models that are being made available is really the name of the game. To a certain extent, how we went from just being homegrown software shops to starting leveraging SaaS-based platforms and solutions in digital and IT world. That's how I see it. Um, Personally, I have focused a lot more on learning about different models, the utility of them, slotting them in the right lane when it comes down to use cases, whether it's quality, commercial, agentic, or whatever have you, and thinking about how to design solutions around them. Um, I think, especially for companies like ours, the value is going to come a lot more from being able to conceptualize a use case and running with a pilot and leveraging what is being available to develop a solution that we can use and extract value out of it. So in many ways, even though we sound like we are doing AI, but we are in reality the consumers of it. We are building the solutions, but we are kind of intermediary consumers for our business.
Right. Excellent, Ashish. It's been great, hearing you and getting all the insights from your perspective, and especially, I'm sure this is very helpful for people in similar positions, running complex manufacturing setups. Um, Ashish, if we have to summarize this, let's say, probably the three big um, takeaways, or probably the advice you would want to give to everyone who's thinking about AI, what will that be?
I would say that, especially as somebody who is trying to bring the AI framework inside the company, I would say focus on three big things. One is data. Really have to pay attention to the data backbone uh, all the way through, unlocking and blocking data, data governance, quality, provisioning it. The data analytics backbone that the companies have invested in are going to be a huge blessing when it comes down to bringing AI to forefront. Very important. Second, I would say is building out the enterprise framework around not only managing and governing AI, but the policy, the security, the team structure, the engagement model, how to engage with external strategic partners, as well as external companies and the models and so on, right? And the third, I would say, is really the business value. Don't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, we are talking about leveraging technology to create value. So, value definition, as much as one can focus on early on, it allows you to continue refining and fine tuning the hypothesis and get the best use of the investments that you'll be making in the space. Um, this, on top of that, of course, talent. Talent is very, very important. Not just the AI engineering skills, but also all the ancillary talent that goes along with it. Your architects, your data experts, even your program management and product management talent. But building like the culture of AI enthusiast as well as expert inside the company as a core talent group um, will certainly help quite a lot. So I would say between data, enterprise framework, business value, and talent, these are the four things I would say people who are in my position should be thinking quite a lot about.
Excellent. So, Ashish, thanks a lot for joining us today for this podcast, and I'm sure these are a lot of insights for people who have tuned in. And so, once again, thank you so much, and it was a pleasure really talking to you.
Yep. Thank you for inviting me. This was great talking to you again, Ramit. And I also want to just leave one more message for everybody is that don't be afraid to experiment with it, but do it responsibly.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you.